Dear Sony, all your base are belong to us. Sincerely, Fail0verflow. What does that mean? The PlayStation 5 has been hacked. Yes, it is wide open. Hello and welcome back to Gears and Tech. We've got a massive update for you guys today. This is regarding the PlayStation 5, and that was not clickbait in the beginning. Yes, the PlayStation 5, it has been hacked and a jailbreak is imminent. Or is it? That's what we're going to cover today. What has happened so far in the scene? Where are we today? And what can the future hold? Hey, before we get too far into this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. If you have been to this channel at least one time before, that means that this is your second time and you are still not subscribed. Obviously, you're enjoying this content. Obviously, YouTube wants you to see this content because you're seeing it again. We have a lot of return visitors, but we're not getting the subscribers like we hoped we would. We're counting on you to subscribe so we can make better content. So, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button and the bell. This algorithm will just get blown out of the water and it'll just tell the whole world, I like this video. And with that, let's get back to the content. First off, there has been 2 exploits that have been revealed on the PlayStation 5. I'm going to cover both of those exploits. I'm going to cover likely how they were discovered, as well as what the discovery of those exploits mean and what it does for us, for me, for you, as PlayStation 5 users or just people in the gaming world that want to know what's going on. To start out with, I will go over the first one, which was by TheFlow 0. We're going to call him just TheFlow because everyone else seems to anyway. They forgot about the 0 for whatever reason. TheFlow posted a picture on Twitter that shows his settings screen on his factory retail PlayStation 5. At first glance, you don't think anything of it until you look at the bottom here where there's a noticeable new menu that you and I do not have on our PlayStation currently. That is Debug settings. Now, some of you are getting really excited right now, and some of you are scratching your head going, I don't get it. So I'm going to cover this. What does this mean? First, it might not seem like a whole lot to any of us. However, the debug setting is what allows you to enable or disable certain functions within the PlayStation that Sony would need access to for purposes that only they care about, and most of the everyday users don't really care or won't benefit from those settings. But we will benefit from certain skilled individuals having access to those settings. What settings am I talking about? Well, if you're familiar with the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4 scene, you've already seen the fruits of the debug menu being enabled. But let's cover specifically the PlayStation 5. So once you go into that debug setting, this is a small snippet of some of the options that are available to you. So package downloader, package installer, save data, add content manager, slow SSD mode. You can see the default is off. Instant app suspending by default is off. Enhanced display buffer, internal memory dump, off. CPU, GPU frequency, default, same as retail. Now, some of these functions are more valuable to developers than others. Specifically, I'm looking at the package downloader and package installer. Now, those are very critical for somebody who has signing authority for an app, because remember, we don't have the ability to sign any packages yet, so you can't just create a package and download it and install it. That's not what's at stake here. But the ability to actually load a package into the PlayStation 5 will enable certain abilities for people that or not you or I. I'm not a coder, so I'm not going to be writing new packages for the PlayStation, but having this menu does make certain things available to me. There also will likely be, again, I can't see the whole menu and I don't have the debug options enabled on my PlayStation, so I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's possible that they would have enable licenses, so for certain codecs that wouldn't be enabled by default. For example, on the PlayStation 3, it enabled MPEG-2 decoding, so you could play videos off a USB stick that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And in this case, the CPU, GPU frequency, that kind of implies that overclocking might be an option. So if you're looking at games that are more graphic intensive and you've got sufficient cooling on your system, you could potentially overclock your PlayStation if we had access to this menu. TheFlow has also confirmed that the method he used to enable this developer mode is not the same method as what Fail0verflow did, and we're going to cover that next. We're going to cover Fail0verflow's hack after we go over the flows, but it is two separate hacks. So TheFlow has confirmed that it is not the same method that he used that he understands Fail0verflow used. So there's two things at play here. So how exactly did he figure out how to enable the debug options? So the most likely method that he used would be similar to what the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 use, which is a certain button combination pressed in the right sequence at the right time in the right order. Similar to like the Konami code. If some of you are older like me, you know what the Konami code is. If you don't know what the Konami code is, look it up. It actually goes way deeper than you ever would have imagined, but it's similar to that. You have to press the left D-pad and then up and then down and then X and then triangle and then select and then R1, and you got to push them in the right order, hold them at the right sequence, and then press start or R3 or whatever in order to enable the debug settings. So as long as you know what that code is, anybody would be able to enable it. Sony does this on purpose so that when they get a console back and they need to troubleshoot it or whatever, if you know what that debug code is, you can enable the debug menu, then you can go through and test the system to figure out what's wrong with it, fix it, disable the debug menu, send it back out to somebody. So how did TheFlow figure it out? Well, I have two guesses. Number one is just straight up brute force. If you sit there and try different combinations, eventually you'll get the right combination. There are bajillions of combinations that it could potentially be, so the brute force approach is a very tough one, because especially after you've tried like 100 or 200 or 500 different iterations of what you think the code might be, if it worked, how on earth are you going to remember which button sequence you had pushed so that you can document it and then share it with people? Now, TheFlow has said he has no intention of sharing with anybody how he enabled this menu, and it could be because he doesn't even remember. He just was pushing buttons and boom, all of a sudden it was enabled. Possibly. I don't think so. I give him a little more credit than that. But that's what you would do if you did a brute force attempt, which is just try various combinations until one works. The other option would be somebody on the inside tipped him off to what exactly it was, or gave him hints at what it could be, or steered him in the right direction so that the brute force method could be more efficient. Now keep in mind that this is a code that they would use regularly for testing and debugging of units, so it's not just one person that knows this code. It would be a generally well-kept secret within the Sony camp, but obviously it could have leaked out to him. He tried it, it worked, and now he's got this access. The question you're asking yourself, what does this mean for the community? Well, at this stage, not a lot. With this hack by itself, not a lot. So there's really not a whole lot that we're going to be able to do. The package uploading and the package downloading is an interesting thing to do. But here's the deal. If this information is shared with the right coding groups, the right hacking groups, they could actually dump this data and actually do something with it, more than what I would be able to do and probably you would be able to do with it. So the debug setting is actually one of the worst entry points that you can have, because it's still just stabbing around in the dark, trying to see what works and what doesn't. There's not a lot of of skilled approach to it. Once you get the debug settings unlocked, you can download certain things from the system, but you still need that extra step of knowledge or else just trying stuff to see what works. Some people have said that because this is enabled, TheFlow has a kernel level exploit. And that's what a lot of people are getting excited about. What is a kernel level exploit? That is the very base level of the system where the main operating code resides. If you have a kernel level exploit, it means that you have full control over that system. You have control over the Blu-ray drive if it's a Blu-ray system. You have control over the memory manager. You have a control over the GPU, over the CPU. You have control over the onboard SSD. You have full control over the system. Because you have full control, you can make the system do whatever you want. Regardless of what the software is telling it to do normally, you can modify that and make it do what you want it to do. I don't believe that he has kernel level exploit at this point, especially if his entry point was, like I said, knowing that combination of buttons. You don't need kernel level access to do that. Now, this is a window that could potentially give you kernel level access, but it is not kernel level access in its own right. Now, some people might disagree with me. I'm happy to debate that in the comments. Go ahead and tell me what you think. Again, the point of this video is to try to say this in a way that people understand, and I know there's going to be some words that maybe are new to you guys, so if you are having a difficulty understanding some of the things I'm going over, go ahead and put that in the comments as well, because I can try and clarify that for you. So the biggest thing is TheFlow is not sharing how he gained this access, so he could have a kernel level access. Probably not. I think it was a button combination that he figured out or was told, or maybe he got a unit shipped that they hadn't disabled that and he hasn't done anything except come across one that has it already enabled. So he might not have the information to share, or he might have the information that he's not sharing. Either way, it's not being shared with anyone. He's the only one. That's what he says on the surface. Behind the scenes, maybe he's telling everyone, I don't know, I'm not part of those groups. So out of the two options, I personally think the fail-overflow method is the better one. It's more promising and it shows more hope. And I'll cover that next. So first of all, who is fail-overflow? You can't talk about fail-overflow without recognizing who they are, where they came from, and where they are now. So before I dig too far into fail-overflow, I have to say, rest in peace to Bushing. You are a true hero in the hacking community. I've been watching you since you came out with the Team Tweezers hack, and really your inspiration is what made me even follow the hacking community in the first place. The way that you put the words down in a way that people could understand was just, it was great for guys like myself who just wanted to go on that journey. You left this world way too early, and your loss is mourned more often than anyone would realize. That being said, Bushing came out on the scene, and at the tail end of a totally different discussion, he was able to show off his Wii hack, where he had, yes, fully hacked the Wii system and was very excited about it. His excitement was totally visible in that video, and Team Tweezers was born. Why Team Tweezers? Well, he used a pair of actual tweezers to jumper out or to short out a certain part of the main board on the Wii, which allowed him to dump the memory data off of the Wii and put together a hack. That's where that name came from. Now, eventually, others joined the team, and the team became known as Fail0verflow. Fail0verflow has actually been a key leader in the hacking scene for the Wii, for the Nintendo, and for the Sony, for the PlayStation, for a lot of years now. They've also faced a lot of backlash because they typically don't share their exploits, so they just brag about the fact that they have exploited this system, but they don't tell anyone exactly how. I'm going to tie this all together with the PlayStation 5 very shortly. So what exactly have they released this time? So on Twitter, they shared this picture, and then along with this picture, they had the comment that says, translation, we got all symmetric PS5 root keys. They can all be obtained from software, including per console root key, if you look hard enough, exclamation mark. Now, on first glance, this is just a bunch of computer code. In true Fail0verflow style, they have highlighted the actual root key that they're talking about, and they even show how in a hex editor it labels that as secure loader. Now, this is not all of the keys, obviously, because the system uses multiple keys. This is just the main key. What does this key do for me? It does nothing for me. Let's talk about what the symmetric root keys are and what they can do for somebody who actually knows how to code. In plain English, the symmetric root key means that you can take a package file, a bin file, a pup file, and you can extract it and decompile it so that you can see it in its plain coding language. When you're done, you can package it all back up and sign it again and lock it. And when it's been signed, it is the exact same as if Sony themselves had signed it. So they essentially have the rubber stamp that validates all software that is to be run on the PlayStation 5. Now, you can see why I feel like this is a little bit more of a breakthrough than what we just talked about earlier. So it's important to note that the system has not been modified to run unsigned code. That is the ultimate goal of piracy. It is not the ultimate goal, especially of the Fail0verflow team. So all they have the ability to do, or it sounds so trite, right? What they have the ability to do is to take a code, modify the code, repackage it, stamp it, and then run it on the PlayStation 5. And the PlayStation 5 would have no idea that that code was malicious or that that code was doing unintended operations because it has that signature. It will pass all signature tests as long as you have those keys. So what does that mean for me, the everyday end user? Again, nothing. I can't write a new program. I can't write a hack. I can't write an exploit. I can only understand what people are saying and then kind of, follow along a little bit, which is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. So I have no value in having these keys. I have no value in having these codes. I just understand what it can do for people who do know what they're doing. So how did they get these keys in the first place? So their post implies that it's available in software. I don't think that they actually extracted it from software, but it is possible. Now, if we go back to the first post that we looked at, there is a menu there that we kind of glossed over, and that would be this one, internal memory dump, off. Now, if we turn internal memory dump on, I would theorize that that means that you could somehow have the system extract all of the memory contents to, like, let's say a USB stick. It would be unencrypted because it came from the system and the system gave it permission to write it to the USB, which would spit out a file similar to this right here that we saw from the Fail0verflow team that they posted. So one might think, well, they just have dev mode enabled and then they dumped it and then they've just gone through it. They've gone that extra step to go through the software to highlight that secure loader. But being Fail0verflow, I don't believe that that's how they did it. I think what they're doing is saying, even though they did it a different way, and they know they did it a different way, it is possible within software, especially with the release of TheFlow's picture showing that debug option. So they're saying, you don't have to do it the way we did it. This software solution is an option for everybody, and you don't have to do any kind of hardware hacking. But Fail0verflow is known for hardware hacking. Using the tweezers initially, they use special things that can spoof parts of the system. They can spy on the communication between controllers, and they can extract data that way. Personally, I think that they've come up with a hardware solution like they've done in the past, where they cause the system to halt or to crash or to do a force reboot, where a certain part of unencrypted data resides in memory. They extract that data out of memory, they put it over here, then they make the software grab the next bit of memory that they need to grab and then have it do another force crash and then extract that next bit, and then they piece together the entire unencrypted code. That's how I feel that they would have done this. Now, typically, they do this just to look through the software so that they can look in the software for an exploit. So what comes next? When you find a suitable exploit in the hardware, that's where the famous Hello World will come out. So you'll have a proof of concept that simply shows Hello World on the screen, and that signals that we have created a code that causes a system halt and then allows us to gain the access we need to display something on screen. It's always hello world. From there, the possibilities are endless. You can make that program go from just saying hello world to enable homebrew, to enable emulators, and unfortunately to enable piracy. For now, until a software hack is discovered, there will not be any new updates. Fail0verflow is not going to release how they got these keys. They're not going to release the hardware hack. TheFlow is not going to release how he enabled debug menus, but trust me, there are people working behind the scenes that do have access to this information, that are working on various solutions, essentially to get to the hello world stage. Once we get to hello world and you see news about that, which it could be tomorrow or it could be a year from now, it depends how tight the Sony security is, because they can write their own package file that forces the hello world and sign it and distribute that. But that is not what Fail0verflow ever does. They usually wait for the manufacturer, in this case Sony, to patch the way that they gained access in the first place, and then they keep those keys that they obtained in their back pocket for whenever they're ready to do what they want to do. And that's where Fail0verflow gets a lot of their bad press, is because they say, hey, look how smart we are, look how good we did, but we're not telling any of you guys how we did it. And then when Sony hacks it, then they say, okay, here's how we did it, but you can't do anything about it now. It's useless to you because Sony's patched it. Part of the reason for that is Fail0verflow is not interested in piracy at all. In fact, they go through great lengths to try and prevent piracy while still allowing for an open system that allows emulators and homebrew. They are mostly interested in getting Linux onto every single piece of hardware that they can get, which is why nobody's really looking at the Xbox. They have a simulated developer mode. You just got to pay a license fee and they'll enable that toggle for you. You can do whatever you want. They've made their own little sandbox for it. And so they're relatively confident that nobody's going to go and try to hack it for piracy. And because the Linux guys, the really smart guys, are not looking at the Xbox for piracy, the pirates have nothing to go off of. Whereas Fail0verflow and other teams have to actually crack the PlayStation open in order to enable Linux and or homebrew, which usually creates the crack that's needed for piracy to sneak in as well. So now the question that you may be asking, I know I'm asking, what do you, Anton at Gears and Tech, think about this? Well, first of all, the geek in me is super excited. I was excited when the PlayStation 3 did it. I kind of sat back for the PlayStation 4 strictly because I game online more now than anything, and when you've got a hacked system, you really can't game online. It's a dangerous thing to do because you'll just have your system banned and then you'll be an offline system anyway. And so it didn't have any benefit for me, and I never really got into that scene. In the PlayStation 5 sense, I'm actually a little bit disappointed. This soon in the life cycle, it's just too soon. Piracy has been known to kill consoles, and here's how that happens. The console will have an increased amount of sales due to it being open for piracy. So people will be like, okay, well, I only need to spend $700 now, and because I can run pirated games, I'll never have to buy another game again. So the $700 will pay for itself every time I download and play a new pirated game. And that's the problem. The game manufacturers look at that system and say, there's not as much money there because a certain percentage of people that would have bought our game will not, and they will just pirate the game instead. We will have lost out on a sale. So system sales go up on a system where it's sold at a loss from the start to try and get you to buy software where they can make their money, but then nobody's buying the software, and ultimately the system will fail, or the quality of the games will drop because it's just not profitable to develop for that system. So you'll still have first-party titles, but that's usually going to be it. Now, it's going to hopefully be a little bit different this time because the Xbox and the PlayStation are close enough in specs that a game developed for one can easily run on the other. So it may not affect it as much as it has in the past with other systems. I'm thinking more of like the PSP and the PS Vita. I mean, those systems died prematurely because of piracy. I hope it doesn't get blown wide open this early in the game, quite literally, because it needs to do better for us to benefit from its existence. So that's really all I wanted to cover today. I know it was a little bit heavy. Again, if there's any questions you have, feel free to post them in the comment. If you think I missed something, go ahead and tell me. I have spent a fair amount of time researching to make sure that the information is accurate. I do have my opinion littered in through this video, so I may not be right on everything, but if you feel that I've missed something, go ahead and post that in the comments. I'd be happy to chat about it or make another video to try and explain that little point that maybe wasn't explained as well as I hoped. Don't forget to check out some of our other videos over here. We do have a lot of great content in our back library. I hope you enjoy it. I do hope to see you again. This has been Gears and Tech. Have a great day.